A large majority of files on a Linux system are text files. The config files are text files, many of the startup files are text files, and of course many of your data files will be text files as well. We can view text files with a number of tools and utilities, but it's important first to make sure that they first are a text file and not a binary file in order to make sure that we don't corrupt our screen output. So let's look first at a command called file. With the file command, I can give it the name of a file, such as etc group, and it will come back and tell me what type of file it is. Perhaps it's an ASCII text file. If I do the same thing on the bin ls command, which is the ls executable, it tells me that it's an executable file. If I do it on a directory, it'll tell me that it is a directory. Might be a special type of directory or just a plain directory. So the file command can be useful to make sure that I'm first looking at an ASCII text file or other type of plain text file that I could view with one of the many text readers. The most common text reader that we use is the cat command. If I look at the man page, cat is short for concatenate. It concatenates files and prints them to the standard output, meaning your screen. If I give it multiple files, it will list one file followed by the next immediately with no breaks. If the file is larger than fits on one screen, it will scroll off the screen. If it's shorter, it will fit within the screen. For example, if I do a cat of etc hosts, it fits within the screen and I can see all of the contents of this file. If I do a cat of the etc group file, which lists groups that are configured on the system, it scrolls off of the screen. I can use the scroll bar in my terminal window and scroll back in order to see the beginning of the output. If I specify both commands together, saying cat etc group and then etc hosts, it will display first the groups file, followed by the host file, with no break indicator or header to separate the two files. It puts the two files together one right after another, concatenated. The cat command is extremely useful for small files, but not as useful for larger files. If I want to look at one page at a time or just a small portion of the file, there are other utilities. For example, the head command can be used to locate just the top few lines of a particular file. The default is to display 10 lines. Looking at the man page, I see that there are some options, including a -n option, where I can print a specific number of lines instead of just the first 10. So I can say head -n5 on etc group and instead only view the first 5 lines of a particular file. I can do similar information with the tail command. Tail etc group shows me just the last few lines. The default again being 10 lines, and so therefore I can use a tail -n5 on etc group and see just the last 5 lines. This is particularly useful with log files. In the var log directory, there are a number of log files from the system. They may be from applications or the startup procedure. Many of the messages go into a file in var log called messages, but that file is not readable by an ordinary user for protection. We'll need to switch to an administrator user to view that file. In the meantime, let's look at one or two files that are available to an ordinary user. I use the tail command on the var log boot.log file, and I can see the last few messages from the boot log. Or on this system, I also have access to view the log file from installing and updating software. The reason I'm particularly showing the log files this way is because of another option on the tail command that's very useful. In addition to the -n to specify the number of lines, there's a -f option on tail to follow, or the output appended to the data on this file grows, and I can watch it as it occurs. So for example, I can do a tail -f on var log yum.log, and it'll show me the last 10 lines, but notice that it did not come back to my prompt. If I hit enter, I move the cursor down, but nothing else appears. If I do switch to another terminal window, and escalate my privileges so that I can send information to that file. As I add entries to the file, it's also displayed on the screen. I'll use a Control-C to get out of this. If I do a tail on var log yum.log now, you'll also see that that entry is also in the file. So following a log file in one window while I do work in another window will allow me to see as messages occur in that log file. I can see them. I might do that by having my windows side by side and being able to catch the changes as they occur. Head and tail can be used to view just a portion of the file, and cat will show us the entire file. Sometimes we want to browse through a long file. There are a couple of commands that are available for us. One of those commands is the more command. You may have used this in other operating systems to look at a file one page at a time. The space bar will allow me to continue to the end, and when I get to the very end, it will break out and give me my prompt back. More is a simple command, but there is a more advanced command with additional navigation tools called less. If I look at the man page for less, its description is the opposite of more. In the longer description, it specifically points out that less is a program similar to more, allows backward movement in the file as well as forward, so it has more functionality, has the ability to switch into an editor, and basically it is the more command with more features. Right? The joke is that less is more. With the less command, I can look at an individual file, and I can use the space bar to advance a page. And now this time I have a colon at the prompt, at the bottom, and when I get to the end, it even says end. I can also use the B key in order to go back, or the page up and page down keys will also work in most cases. I can use a lowercase g to take me to the top of the file, and I can use a capital G to take me to the end. I can also specify a number and a capital G, and it'll take me to that particular line number. This can be useful if I'm working at looking at code and looking for an error on or around line 15. And I can jump specifically to that line number. In addition, I can search through this file by specifying the slash key, and again my prompt at the bottom will change, and I can put in character or key sequence that I'm looking for, and it will search and highlight that information. If I press the N key for next, it'll take me to the next instance. If it doesn't find any more, it'll simply say the pattern is not found. If I give it a capital N, it'll find the previous instance. And again, when I get to the top of the file, it won't find any more choices on all of this. Less is the pager that's used by the man pages. So anything that I learn in man for navigation, such as the same type of slash and search capabilities, or the B key to go back, or the lowercase g to jump to the top, these are all actually navigation within the less command, and they are used inside of man pages because the man command calls less in order to view the contents of the manual page one page at a time. Various commands are listed in the man page on the command section, many more than those that I've covered, but they do include the space for scrolling forward, the B for scrolling backwards, and again, the page up and page down keys will usually work for those as well. You could go forward or back by a certain number of lines. You can repaint the screen. You can scroll right and left for files that have more characters than fit in your terminal. The G will let you go to a specific line, capital G specifically. The lowercase g defaults to line 1, and the uppercase G defaults to the end of the file. You can also use a P and go to a percentage of the file. Take me 50% of the way through the file. and many other navigation choices or searching by different patterns that are specified here for the less command. I can also give multiple file names to most of these commands. For example, if I say head on etc password, etc group, and etc hosts, in this case, I put the space so that it actually will display each of those. In this case, it will show me the first up to 10 lines of each of these files. But unlike the cat command with head and tail, I will get a header line that will show me which file I'm looking at. And again, it will scroll off the screen, so I may need to use my scroll bar to see all of the contents. If I use the less command and view multiple files, the way that less works with multiple files is that it will tell me at the bottom that which file I'm viewing and tell me that it is file 1 of 3, for example. Here, in order to switch to the next file, what I need to do is press the colon key to get a colon prompt where I can give a specific command that I want to do within less. In this case, it's an N for next file. It'll take me to the next file. And colon N again will take me to the third file. At any time with less, I could use Q to quit out and close all of the files. So after I've used the file command to identify a text file as opposed to a directory or a binary or some other type of file, including data files, with my text files, I can view the entire contents with the cat command. I can view part of the file with the head or tail, meaning the top or the bottom of the file, and each of those commands has options in order to limit the number of lines that are visible. I can follow along with a log file with a tail-f command. And finally, I can look at files page by page and search through them by using the less command.